Urgent announcement: if you don't want to die, stock up on supplies right away. This week, City A is expecting the largest snowfall in 500 years. I was speechless when I saw the news. Come on, is the bright sun outside fake? Spreading rumors is against the law. I have made some money over the years, bought 2 houses, rented out one and live in the other. I've decided to take some time off at home, collect rent on time every month, and live my happy life. Even though it's already autumn, the weather outside is still very hot. I was about to open the window for some fresh air, but a wave of hot air hit me. Never mind, I'll just turn on the air conditioner. Even though I don't believe there will be a blizzard, since I want to rest at home for a while, I have to stock up on some supplies. As I drove into the supermarket parking lot, I was shocked to see that all 1,000 parking spaces were full. I had to drive around in circles before I finally found a parking spot. On weekends, everyone comes out for shopping, so it's understandable for there to be a lot of people, but it's hard to understand why the same thing happens on weekdays. Is it because of those false rumors online? Stop overthinking. I followed the crowd and squeezed into the supermarket. I never thought going to the supermarket could be this crowded one day. Supermarket staff are standing at the entrance, repeatedly shouting not to crowd and to queue up in an orderly manner. But the crowd behind me keeps streaming in. Even the shopping carts are not enough. My face turned pale, and I'm feeling a bit scared. Maybe something bad is really going to happen. I quickly turned around and rushed out of the supermarket. I ran to the parking lot to find a shopping cart, but found many people had the same idea. I went to the exit again and followed the shoppers who had finished shopping. I waited for them to load their car, and then I just took the shopping cart away. When I returned to the supermarket again, I already had a complete shopping list in my mind. Rice, noodles, and cooking oil are must-buys. Dehydrated vegetables, processed meat products like beef jerky, and canned goods can all be stored. We already have plenty of other household items at home, so we can buy them next time. After making up my mind, I rushed into the supermarket and headed straight for the food section. Seeing the bare shelves of rice and flour, I was a bit confused. Even the soybeans were sold out. Now I regret not having the habit of stocking up on rice and flour. After some thought, I headed straight to the freezer section. Luckily, it wasn't crowded, and I found enough food to eat. Even though there wasn't much left, I quickly grabbed some frozen steamed buns and baozi. These foods can be eaten after heating, but then I thought, without gas, they would be useless, so I decisively turned around and headed to the fast food area. When I arrived at the fast food section, I realized what a madhouse it was. There wasn't even a single pack of instant noodles on the shelves. Just a few boxes of self-heating hot pot placed all the way at the top, too high to reach at all. I had a sudden idea and went straight to the small door of the supermarket warehouse. There were hardly any people in the food section of the warehouse, and the door was not locked. I sneaked into the warehouse, secretly praying that the supermarket staff wouldn't pack up all the goods so quickly. The inventory in the warehouse is almost gone, and I couldn't even find a box of the most popular instant noodles. Luckily, my observation skills are sharp, and I found a few boxes of self-heating hot pot hidden in a corner. I quickly moved the items into the shopping cart, but unfortunately, the cart can only fit 4 boxes. I immediately decided to go pay first, then come back to continue moving. I chose to use the self-checkout instead of the man counter, which was further away. I didn't want others to know where I found these items. After going back and forth 3 times, I finally took all the self-heating hot pot meals. The trunk is also full of stuff. I struggled to move everything into the car, muttering to myself, if it turns out to be just a rumor from an online friend, I'll be in big trouble. When I got home, I organized everything and placed it on the food shelf I had specifically made. I felt really upset because I spent $10,000 on that shelf. Looking at the pile of beef jerky and dried squid, my cheeks suddenly ache. Oh well, I'll just treat it as a preparation for doomsday. I rubbed my arms, sore from moving things, and secretly made up my mind to exercise more. Then I rolled onto the bed and turned on the TV. The voice of a female host came from the TV, saying that a city will have its first rain of autumn tomorrow, and the temperature will drop, so please remember to keep warm. I suddenly sat up in bed, wondering if it was real. Without time to rest, I grabbed my car keys and hurried out. The goal is very clear, an outdoor supply store. If the temperature suddenly drops, the most deadly thing won't be the lack of food, but the low temperature. In my mind, I quickly searched for natural disaster movies I watched before, and the more I think about it, the more scared I become. I immediately decide to go buy some warm supplies. I quickly found what I needed at the outdoor gear store: a thick tent, a sleeping bag, a blanket, a solid fuel heater, a lighter, and matches. Then I spotted a thick down jacket and bought 2. I also asked the salesperson to help me find the warmest snow boots and thick socks. The female sales clerk's eyes were narrowed with happiness. Meeting such a big spender in autumn was lucky. Just the down jacket and snow boots alone cost over $2,000. With everything else, this batch of goods easily exceeded $10,000. After helping me load everything into the car, the sales clerk smiled and told me to come to her if I want to shop in the future. I twitched at the corner of my mouth and thought it over before gently reminding, "It's going to get cold tomorrow. You should stock up on some food at home." The sales girl paused for a moment, then nodded in agreement. I didn't know if she caught the hidden meaning in my words, but I didn't want to be too explicit and come off as crazy. I silently hoped that the sales girl would understand what I was trying to say. Looking at the half-filled car of cold weather gear, my heart finally settled. With all these things, I shouldn't freeze. On the way home, I decided to stop by the supermarket again. There are even more people in the supermarket this time. Instead of convenience food, I'm heading to the canteen candy section. I'm planning to make a quick decision this time. I didn't grab a shopping cart, just a basket. After rushing to the candy section, I found the chocolate shelves empty from being bought out. I quickly grabbed everything left and put them in my shopping basket. Chocolate can provide a large amount of energy for the body that fast food cannot, filling the energy gap. Candies may not provide as much energy as chocolate, but they can be a lifesaver during low blood sugar. Stock up on them, whether they're tasty or not. When it comes to snowstorms, the most likely issues are water and power outages. I immediately located the nearest water station and decisively ordered 20 barrels of water. After paying the bill, I went crazy buying functional drinks at the beverage section. Seeing the cart full of high-calorie foods, I sighed silently knowing that I have to finish all of them. I might gain 100 pounds from all this. When I got home, instead of rushing to unload the stuff, I quietly waited for the water delivery guy. I gave him a $100 tip to help bring all the water bottles upstairs. The delivery guy was shocked by my generous gesture, and I quickly explained that I was having a party at home. To be honest, I'm just afraid of someone finding out about all the stuff I hoard. If there was a snow disaster, I bet the robbers wouldn't have the courage to leave their homes. When I finished organizing everything, it was already dawn. I took out paper and pen, counted the names and quantities of each material, and was surprised by the result. We have 300 boxes of self-heating hot pot, 100 boxes of self-heating rice, 20 bags of frozen steamed buns and bread, 100 packets of instant soup, 20 bags of dehydrated vegetables, 50 cans of canned fruits, and two 50-liter storage boxes filled with chocolates and candies. Additionally, 20 barrels of drinking water and 20 boxes of energy drinks. Under normal circumstances, surviving for 5 months should not be a problem. Later on, I also found the electric heater and high-power flashlight I bought before, hoping they can last longer. The weather outside is terribly gloomy. I'm standing on the balcony, silently gazing at the sky without moving for a long time. I feel a bit uneasy. If everything does happen, it would be a disaster for most families. Should I inform everyone? After much deliberation, I decided to anonymously post a message online. The number of people who believe it is now out of my hands. After posting, there were only a few responses, filled with sarcastic comments. Nowadays, spreading rumors doesn't even require speaking, just a few clicks of the fingers. Another victim of paranoia. The next day, heavy rain accompanied by strong winds arrived as scheduled. The strong wind made the glass rattle, and a loud bang woke me up from my sleep. The rain is crazily beating against the window. There are hardly any vehicles or pedestrians on the street. At this moment, my phone also received an alert, saying that there is a sudden heavy rainstorm in City A. Citizens, please take care when traveling. All the apps suddenly flooded with posts about the drop in temperature. Everyone's discussing this sudden downpour out of nowhere. Some even came up with conspiracy theories. Although everyone is talking about it, no one would have expected that this heavy rain is just the beginning. I glanced at the electronic thermometer on the wall and it showed that the indoor temperature suddenly dropped to 15 degrees. The unexpected drop in temperature made me feel a bit panicky, and I didn't know what to do for a moment. The rain is getting heavier. The tall buildings outside are already covered by rain mist. Raindrops are hitting the glass densely, sounding like the low growl of a beast. I was sitting on the sofa, staring out of the window blankly, when suddenly something came to my mind. I hurried to the storage room and found the leftover renovation materials. Among them, I found the household toolkit. Inside, there are tools like a small hammer, screwdriver, pliers, etc. If you really run into trouble, these things might come in handy. When I was searching, I pleasantly discovered 2 rolls of wide tape. The tape is used to mark the glass vertically and horizontally to prevent it from breaking easily. I quickly marked all the windows with wide tape. After finishing this task, I had only half of the tape left in my hand. Looking at the remaining tape, I turned around to find a plastic bag and seal the window gaps tightly. When I was young, my family was not well off, and the windows always leaked cold air. It was so cold in the winter that I couldn't sleep. My mom taught me to use tape to seal the windows, even though the room was still very cold. At least it stopped the drafts. It's surprising that the method my mom taught me to keep warm when I was young still works well now. After finishing everything, I lazily snuggled in my bed ready to sleep some more, but then I found out that the homeowners group in the community was already arguing loudly. Water had flooded the hallway. When will the property management deal with it? The property is inactive, wasting money for nothing. It's so cold today. Can they consider turning on the heating earlier? The first floor is flooded. Please send someone to check it out. The property always ignores us at times like this. I definitely won't pay the property fee next year. The property manager and building administrator are trying to calm down the angry residents in the group. I pursed my lips, turned off my phone screen, and switched on the TV to catch up on the latest news. The news channel was also doing a special report on the heavy rain. Remind residents to close the doors and windows and avoid going out. The news keeps reminding people to be prepared for disasters. So I just turned off the TV, lied down on the bed, and felt a bit overwhelmed for a while. In the evening, the sound of wind and rain gradually subsides. The sky is a strange shade of red and purple, with thick clouds looming overhead. It feels like the sky is about to collapse, and there's an indescribable smell in the air. The next morning, it really snowed. The red and purple colors in the sky faded away, replaced by an unerasable gray. I woke up freezing early in the morning and rushed to the balcony to look outside. The snow was not heavy, but the indoor temperature dropped to just 1 degree. I shivered, quickly ran back to the house to plug in the electric heater, then checked my phone. It was indeed filled with unexpected snowfall news. In the video, everyone cheers for the first snow, immersed in the joy of the snowfall. snowfall. The screen reflects smiling faces, and people are not aware of the disaster about to unfold. I listen to the laughter and noise of children outside the window. For a moment, I felt extremely powerless. I couldn't rush out and shout about the disaster to their parents, nor could I post any messages in the homeowner group. At that moment, the only way out was to keep quiet and protect myself. I leaned against the electric heater, letting the warm air relieve my tense body. Then, I took out some thick, never-worn warm clothes from the cabinet, put them on, and began assembling the tent. I thought I was quite handy. Assembling it was not easy at all. It took me half a day to put it together. After setting it up, I took out the blanket I bought earlier and stuck it to the inside wall of the tent. I'm not sure if it will block out the cold air, but it made me feel better. Just as I was about to take the next step, the shrill sound of the phone interrupted my activity. The person calling is my supposed father, who has never really fulfilled his responsibilities as a father over the years. I can easily guess why he's calling at this time. When he left me and my mom, he was so firm that my mom had to raise me on her own. After many years of hard work, she passed away last year. Now this absent father of mine is asking me for money for my mom's funeral expenses. I used to have a little fantasy about him, but that all disappeared after that. Thanks to him, I never believed in marriage and have remained single for so many years. The scenes from back then flashed through my mind frame by frame. By the time I came back to my senses, the call had already ended. The room is quiet, with faint sounds of children's laughter from outside. After calming my emotions, I went back to sleep for a while. By the third day, the snow was still falling, and as the temperature dropped below zero, there was no more sound of children's laughter outside the window. Instead, all that could be heard was the eerie sound of the howling wind carrying snowflakes. It was truly frightening to the core. It's so cold today. Even with my down jacket on, I still feel cold. It looks like buying those two thick down jackets was the right choice. Looking at the noisy messages in the homeowners group, I can tell that everyone was completely unprepared for the sudden drop in temperature. One new homeowner doesn't even have a thick blanket. But I know I shouldn't play the savior at this time. When facing adversity, a person can only rely on themselves. No one knows when things will get better, whether it's in a week, a month, or never. Put down the phone. I got up to make myself a bowl of hot soup to warm my stomach, but no water came out from the faucet. It seems like the water pipes outside are frozen and burst. I haven't encountered a situation like this in many years. The last time I remember dealing with a burst pipe was 20 years ago when my neighbor in the building faced the second disaster of having no water available. I ran to the balcony and found that the water in the bucket had frozen. If the temperature keeps dropping, the water in the bucket will completely freeze. At that point, I would only have ice to quench my thirst. With that in mind, I quickly moved the bucket from the balcony to the tent in the living room. I snuggled up to the radiator, trying to get as much warmth as possible from the only source of heat in the room. After doing that, my body felt a bit warmer, so I took the opportunity to seal up all the drafty areas in the house. After finishing everything, I ran to the kitchen, heated up a bread in the microwave, hoping to finish eating these frozen foods while the electricity is still on. I was eating steamed buns while feeling silly at the same time. Knowing that there might be a power outage, I still foolishly bought frozen goods. Although frozen products can be stored, heating them up is a problem. I took a sip of a drink, and the icy liquid flowed from my throat to my stomach, making me shiver all over. Turning to gaze at the heavy snow outside the window, I couldn't help but wonder, will this snow stop tomorrow? Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. There is a young couple who just moved in next door. I don't know them well. What are they doing here at this time? I stood up cautiously, quietly made my way to the door without making any noise. In this situation, even the most paranoid person would know the trouble they are about to face. Due to several days of heavy rain mixed with snow, we can no longer go out to buy supplies. The only way to get supplies now is to rob others. Two people are knocking on doors outside. The girl is knocking on the door and shouting for help. Please help us. We just moved in and don't have warm clothes. Could you give us a blanket, please? Can you help us? Are you sure you saw him buying a lot of things? It looks like there's nobody in this room. The boy whispered. He bought a lot of water. I saw it. He asked the water station staff to deliver it directly to his house. I also saw a lot of supplies being delivered together. With so many things purchased, he must be hiding something in there. My heart suddenly clenched. That day, I really didn't notice the water delivery person being seen, even though I knew as long as I didn't open the door, the other party couldn't come in. But I was still afraid of any unforeseen circumstances. Fortunately, after a while, the knocking stopped and it seemed like the two people outside gave up and went to ask for help at another house. I pressed my ear against the door and soon the knocking next door also stopped. A few seconds later, a girl's scream is heard, followed by a bang of a door closing, then silence. I secretly felt relieved that I didn't open the door. I can't imagine what might be happening next door, and I'm even more scared to think about what would happen if I opened the door. Just thinking about it gives me goosebumps. The corridor has become quiet, and I can only listen to the sound of my own heartbeat silently. It's still snowing heavily on the fourth day, with the wind outside blowing snowflakes. The whole world looks grey. Many homeowners are seeking help in the group, but no one is responding, and there has been no news from the property management since they issued a notice yesterday. I am now surrounded by cold, fear, and loneliness. I turned on the TV and lowered the volume, but chilling news is still being broadcasted. Heavy snow may last for 1 to 2 weeks. For your own safety, please avoid going out unnecessarily. The sound of knocking on the door is constant. I don't know if it's the same couple from yesterday. In this situation, human hearts are scarier than the snow disaster. From the third day onwards, I've been living in that temporary tent. The electric heater couldn't fit inside. outside, so I had to lean it against the tent and huddle close to the radiator to keep warm. Even though sleeping in the sleeping bag kept me warm, it was really uncomfortable. The floor is too hard. I couldn't move around all night. I hardly slept last night. I got up and quickly dragged the blanket and mat from the bedroom into the tent. I laid down a thick mat in the tent to separate myself from the cold floor and increase comfort. After doing all that, I checked my phone for news, but unfortunately, I couldn't find any good news. Not just the city of A, but all over the country. Different places have been affected by snow disasters to varying degrees. Watching the news reports, my mood is getting heavier and heavier. The disaster has affected the whole country, making rescue work extremely difficult. It may be hard to receive help for a while, so surviving will depend entirely on ourselves. I picked up a chocolate energy bar for breakfast, but couldn't open the packaging with my thick gloves on. I had to take off the gloves and try opening it again. As soon as I took off my gloves, a piercing cold hit my hands. In just a few seconds, my fingers were shaking from the cold. I quickly put the gloves back on. After some effort, I finally managed to open the package. Inside, the chocolate energy bar had frozen into chocolate-flavored ice cubes, especially the caramel part. It's so hard to bite or chew. I can only slowly eat it by sucking on it. I looked up at the thermometer, but the digital display had turned into a flat line of despair. Only God knows the temperature in the room now. On the 5th day, when I woke up again from the cold, I realized that the real challenge was about to begin. The electric heater had turned into a big block of ice, and the whole city was out of power. After I rubbed my face, I instantly felt a sharp pain on my face and itchiness in my ears. It must be because I got frostbite from not having the heater on at night. I instinctively reached for my phone next to me to check the news today, but it had shut down due to being too cold. Without my phone, I'm afraid I might freeze to death and no one would know. What terrifies me is that my neighbors who didn't stock up may have quietly frozen to death in their homes. Thinking about this is shaking my will to survive. The weather is too cold. It's making my brain freeze. I'm trying to remember all the happy things to push out the negative energy from my mind. I keep telling myself that I have to keep going. After doing mental preparation for a long time, I climbed out of the tent shakily and put on the 2 down jackets I bought. It usually takes 10 seconds to get dressed, but I took nearly 10 minutes. My body was stiff from the cold and shaking uncontrollably. Now, besides staying warm, the most important thing is to store heat. I collected my thoughts, struggled to place a box of food at the tent entrance, and then turned to grab some solid alcohol and a small jar. Looking at my prepared drink, I was speechless. All the nice drinks turned into ice cubes. I don't even know if hot steamy beverages taste good or not. On the 6th day, the snow was falling even heavier. When I opened my eyes to see the bigger snowfall, I was not surprised at all. This snow was like a software bug, wondering when this bug will be fixed. Luckily, the temperature in the room didn't continue to drop. Common sense tells me that if the house is sealed again, I might run out of oxygen. I reluctantly tore off the tape from the kitchen window and instantly felt the cold breeze blowing in from outside. I had to console myself that at least this is better than suffocating. Looking at the 20 barrels of frozen drinking water beside me, I frowned. Bottled water is great, but these barrels are too thick. After struggling to dig a hole in the plastic barrel with a small knife and smashing the ice with a small hammer from the toolbox, I finally managed to extract a big chunk of ice. If only I had known it would be this hard, I would have just bought small bottles of water. As I watched the ice slowly melt in the small pot, I realized it would be impossible to steam the frozen steamed buns. The consumption of water and alcohol would be too high, so I threw the frozen steamed buns, beef jerky, and dried shredded squid into the water to cook. After the first bite, I felt better. Money and love are all nonsense. A pot of soft and hot beef jerky with steamed buns is better, even though it tasted disgusting. At least it could provide me with the energy I needed. I brainwashed myself while devouring this whole pot of food, and the calories quickly spread to my limbs. I let out a burp, then took out a pack of gummy candies to eat. The gummy was frozen solid like a rock, taking a long time in my mouth to melt slightly. On the 7th day, although the snow didn't stop, it also didn't get heavier. I woke up in the morning with a bad feeling lingering in me. No news might be good news. I brainwash myself every day to stay positive. I even thought about publishing a book for myself if I can successfully get through this disaster. The title of the book will be Self-Hypnosis Success Techniques. I opened the tent, grabbed the food box on the table, and now I regret it so much. Give me another chance, and I will definitely buy all kinds of pickles and ketchup. Bread and steamed buns are just too terrible. In the following days, I tried 100 ways to eat bread. The most memorable one was when I suddenly craved a pineapple sweet porridge I had before, but this time I replaced the rice with bread and the pineapple with gummy candies. On the 11th day, the snow finally stopped, but the wind was still very strong and frightening. I crawled out of the tent, skillfully opened the packaging of the self-heating pot, threw everything inside into the pot, crushed a few ice cubes, lit the solid alcohol, and waited for the meal to be ready. Watching the ice melt bit by bit, I made up my mind that if I could get through this time, I would definitely have a big feast. I eat whatever hot pot, lamb skewers, or barbecue I feel like eating. I like to sweat a lot while eating to feel satisfied. Although self-heating hot pot is delicious, there's too little meat in it. Despite that, I can't bear to finish a whole pot alone, so I always have a self-heating hot pot paired with a bowl of rice and cook them together to enjoy. I can only console myself. When eating hot pot, I always pair it with fried rice with egg to make it authentic. Even in tough times, I always maintain this positive and optimistic mindset. The feeling of anxiety only hits me when I go to sleep at night. I keep asking myself over and over, is there really hope? But there's no one to answer me. The snow hasn't stopped and it seems like the temperature will be even lower in the next few days. Since the power outage, the electronic clock in the house has stopped working. It's pitch black outside, and we can't tell if a new day has arrived. As time goes by, my sense of time has completely disappeared, and now I can't even tell how many days have passed. I read about an experiment where people were placed in a room without a clock, and their circadian rhythm was completely disrupted. I think I might be experiencing the same thing. Every day when I wake up, I start smashing ice cubes to have dinner. After I'm full, I crawl back into my sleeping bag and go back to sleep. I comfort myself that if there's a similar experiment in the future, I must sign up. The prize money is just like picking up money from the ground. Unfortunately, no matter how optimistic I am, I can't overcome the harsh reality. Right now, all I hear is the sound of howling wind throughout the world. These days, I have been trying to tap on the heating pipes every day to see if there is anyone around responding to me. It's frustrating that no matter how long I tap, I never get any response. All my neighbors around me have passed away this autumn, which feels like the world has abandoned me. I feel like I have no one to turn to and no one to answer to. I am the only one left persevering, but I don't know how much longer I can hold on. I haven't used a lot of food these days, but we're almost out of solid alcohol. I ran out of alcohol. I was thinking of burning books, clothes, or even furniture, but then I quickly dismissed this foolish idea from my mind. It's so cold. It would be ridiculous to risk getting smoked or burned to death instead of starving. I can only hope that this disaster will be over soon. I don't know how long I can hold on. The chocolate is all gone, and we've eaten most of the beef jerky. We still have a lot of dehydrated vegetables and self-heating hot pot meals, but the solid alcohol is running low. We use a lot of solid alcohol every time we cook frozen food. Thinking about this, a sense of powerlessness spreads from the bottom of my heart. It's getting colder, even with 2 down jackets on. I can't bear the bone-chilling cold that's seeping into my bones. My limbs are already frozen stiff. I tried to move my toes, but unfortunately I can't even do such a simple thing. I know what this means, but I'm too scared and unable to take off my boots to check, so I'll just let it be. This is just the beginning. I can only pray that Lady Luck is on my side. There's only one self-heating warm baby left. I really don't want to open it. Besides the cold, the huge loneliness now is more terrifying than hunger. I don't know if there is anyone around me, and I don't even know how many people are still alive in this city. I miss the noisy kids downstairs, the arguments that used to drive me crazy, and the never-ending sound of renovation. I even started to regret not answering the call from that irresponsible father. I'm curled up in my sleeping bag, wanting to cry, but I'm too scared to. I'm afraid that if tears fall, they will make the frostbite on my face worse. I'm even more afraid that the tears won't come at all. I hummed a song my mom used to sing to me when I was a kid. After such a long time, it was the first time I heard a sound besides the wind, though my voice trembled with cold. This is the only thing I can do now. On the 23rd day, the solid alcohol ran out as well. I opened the self-heating hot pot, not sure when help will arrive. I can't waste any water resources. I kept the ingredients close to me to thaw them with body heat. Crushed some ice to melt in my mouth for hydration. Even though it took away a lot of my body heat, I had no choice. I believe I can endure until the disaster is over. On the 25th day, I only have a few dozen bottles of energy drinks and a barrel of mineral water left. My body is getting weaker, and I'm finding it harder to stay motivated. I can feel that my life is slipping away slowly. I'm forcing myself to perk up and open a can of fruit cocktail. All the can peaches are frozen in syrup. I have to use a fork to poke and eat the frozen pieces one by one. The sweet taste slowly melts on my tongue. Turns out frozen peaches have a different flavor. I was immersed in the joy brought by the sweetness, and suddenly remembered the little match girl in the textbook. I feel like this can of fruit is like a lit match, but what it ignites is not hope, but comfort for myself. I burrowed back into my sleeping bag, layers of clothes and blankets pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I refused to accept that this was how I was going to die. There are so many cities waiting for me to explore, so many delicious foods waiting for me to taste, and so many interesting things waiting for me to experience. As long as there is a glimmer of hope, I won't give up. But what should I do now? A change in mindset has heightened my will to survive. With my eyes closed, I am actively exploring various self-rescue strategies, convinced that there must be a solution I haven't considered yet. I then grabbed the dehydrated vegetables next to me, ripped open the packaging, and suddenly they exploded and scattered all over the floor. I gathered the scattered vegetables together with my hands and ate them directly from the ground by bringing my mouth close to the vegetables. Actually, strictly speaking, it didn't fall on the ground. It fell into the blankets. To be precise, it suddenly reminded me of when I was a child, turning off the lights and secretly eating cookies in bed. I thought I did a perfect job, but this morning my mom scolded me for it. She told me to be more careful and not leave cookie crumbs under the bed. She will always find out. My mind is all over the place right now. I suddenly saw a small pile of unused self-heating hot pot heat packs in the corner of the tent. These things can generate a lot of heat. Maybe we can use them as a little snack warmer. But we're running out of mineral water. I'm not sure if we can use functional drinks instead. Also, will water vapor cause frost inside the tent? I'm so torn. But in the end, I decided to give it a try. I opened the last bottle of mineral water, smashed off a small piece of ice with a small hammer, and then put it in the plastic bag left over from shopping. After doing all this, I carefully placed the bag between my clothes in my arms, ready to melt the ice with my body heat. When I tucked the bag into my arms, a sudden chill spread through my chest and all over my body, making me tremble with cold as I tightly hugged myself. Hard work paid pays off. I finally succeeded. As the hot steam rose, tears welled up in my eyes. Finally, I could see a glimmer of hope again. I closed the tent and greedily enjoyed it, not letting any heat escape. On the 30th day, it seems like the heavy snow has stopped. When I popped out of the tent to grab some more ice for warmth, I suddenly noticed that the inside of the house was much brighter than before, and when I listened carefully, I could hardly hear the wind outside. The window has long been covered by heavy snow. Today, there is a faint light shining into the usually dark room. This sudden change has lifted my spirits. With the snow stopping, there is a possibility of being rescued. The days ahead will no longer be a long and purposeless wait. I crawled out of the tent, wanting to check if the snow had stopped. I was horrified to find that I couldn't feel my feet at all. The pain and numbness had disappeared, but the fear and sadness only lasted a moment. I don't have time to think about this now. The instinct to survive has made me forget about everything temporarily. I moved to the window difficultly, trying to listen closely by putting my ears as close to the window as possible. I can hardly hear any other sound outside, only a faint sound of the wind. I breathe heavily to try to melt the ice and snow on the window a little, so that I can see the situation outside with my own eyes. But I didn't succeed. The ice and snow were too thick. However, the good news is that the blizzard is finally over. That's the most uplifting thing for me. I struggled back to the tent, and I'm not sure if it's just my mind playing tricks on me, but the temperature suddenly doesn't feel as low as before. On the 31st day, the wind outside completely died down. I knew that the weather where the snow melts is colder than when it snows. I took out all the remaining self-heating hot pots and heating packs from the self-heating rice. I crushed all the remaining ice and transferred them into the empty boxes of the self-heating pots. I neatly arranged the boxes filled with ice in the tent, preparing for the work ahead. I roughly checked the remaining supplies. Solid alcohol and hand warmers have been used up. There are still 43 heating packets left in the self-heating hot pot. I still have dehydrated vegetables, instant soup, and 2 cans of fruits in the self-heating pot, as well as half a case of energy drinks. With these supplies, I can last for at least 15 days. In order to help the rescue team find me more quickly, I pulled the blanket that was originally under me, tore the colorful blanket cover into strips, twisted them into an SOS sign, and used the remaining tape to stick the fabric strips on the glass. I believe that as soon as the snow on the window melts, the rescue team will be able to notice the distress signal on the window quickly. This will greatly increase the chances and speed of being rescued. I wanted to stuff a cloth strip outside the door crack, but considering the situation, I gave up. Not to mention the tape I used to seal the door crack before. Now the thick ice on the door is something I can't handle right away. I'm so excited right now. Even though I don't know when the rescue team will find me, I firmly believe that they will locate me as soon as possible. On the 33rd day, I could feel the snow melting slowly on the window, and the sunlight shining through made the room brighter and brighter. On the 35th day, the sound of a helicopter approaching got closer and closer. Please stay at home and wait calmly for rescue. I can't believe my ears. The rescue team actually came, and so quickly too. I struggled to crawl out of the sleeping bag, grabbed the toolbox beside me, and crawled towards the front door. I put all my strength into it, pounding on the door one by one. The thick ice on the door started to crack bit by bit under my violent strikes, echoing throughout the entire room. I don't know how long I've been hitting it. I cleared all the ice and snow within my reach. My arms went numb from the prolonged hitting, but I dared not stop. I was afraid that I might miss the rescue team due to my momentary laxity, but luckily before I ran out of strength, I heard a loud noise of footsteps outside the door. I mustered all my remaining strength to knock on the door vigorously, tears streaming down my face uncontrollably. I was saved. Finally saved. The doomsday-like heavy snow lasted for 32 days, covering the entire city. In City A, with a resident population of over 20 million, there were less than 100,000 survivors. Countless people, in the billions, vanished without a trace in this disaster. The heavy snow buried the streets entirely, with snow depths reaching over 10 meters. Numerous bungalows collapsed under the weight, and low-rise buildings were buried. Rescue operations were extremely challenging. I was successfully rescued by the rescue team and transferred to a temporary medical center for treatment due to prolonged exposure to hunger and cold. My face and hand suffered severe frostbite. Despite the doctor's efforts, they couldn't save my left foot, but I am still grateful. The authorities later built an electronic memorial for the victims of this major disaster. Every time I open the electronic memorial and see those once lively smiling faces, tears uncontrollably streamed down my face. 3 months later, I was discharged from the hospital smoothly. Looking at the empty streets, I felt a sense of daze. The once lively and bustling scene is no longer there. After receiving several sessions of post-disaster trauma counseling, I joined volunteer activities for post-disaster reconstruction. I did my best to help those in need with a positive attitude and a radiant smile, warming the people around me. Late at night, I opened my laptop and typed a line in it. The old me had no choice. The end.